Every week, I speak with people who are suffering or they're frustrated that they're living well below their potential. They might be in a demanding corporate job, and this bleeds into their personal life. So naturally, they point fingers at the external environment, at their incremental earning potential, at the toxic work culture, or just market conditions out there in the world. I know this well. I lived it myself. But the root issue is that we're putting our faith in external systems. And this stunts your growth and potential more than anything in your career and life. So today, we'll discuss exactly how to fix that. Here we go.
Growing up, society taught you to follow the script by choosing a career path and climbing the ladder. But for many people, this promise falls flat. Work suffocates them and life becomes painful. Here, you're trapped in what I call the corporate cage. Fortunately, there's a way out. You can take control of your corporate job and unlock a life of freedom. I call this living uncaged. Hi, this is your host, Matt Doan. I'm a coach, creator, and entrepreneur. Uncaging people is my mission because it's been my exact life journey. This show provides you the stories, principles, and tactics to make it happen. Welcome to Uncage Yourself.
Quick warning before we get started. This episode might offend some people. I'm going to touch on religion and other institutions in my life that affected me deeply, and I want to be open and honest on what that did and then how I had to address that. So I hope you keep an open mind as I lay out a perspective that I think can really help you, no matter what you believe and what you do. So here we go. I was raised to put my faith in external systems. For me, faith meant attending church every Sunday and praying for good things to happen, and frankly, for bad things not to happen. It also meant obeying the rules set forth by religions and the institutions around me, believing that they held the keys to my salvation and happiness. In school, faith meant striving for good grades at all costs, to please teachers and parents, and getting into higher levels of schools and college and grad school over time, because that's what you did. In my career, here's what faith meant. I collected degrees and credentials, believing that pleasing gatekeepers, climbing ladders, and earning external validation would lead to fulfillment. Do you see a trend here? For years, my faith was defined by others, centered around outside institutions rather than my inner truth. Now, I see that external systems can provide valuable guidance, energy, and community, but my over-reliance on external systems led me to suppress parts of myself to fit the mold, and that had huge costs. I ignored my intuition in favor of prescribed dogma. I was trapped in the crowd, suffering, just like the other people around me, and I started to normalize this. The pain of this external over-reliance taught me that while outside systems have value, I couldn't solely depend on them. I needed to turn my focus inward. I had to learn to have faith in my own inner wisdom and potential, not just external authorities, in order to live the life I was meant to. Over time, the toll of this external focus became abundantly clear. No matter how well I appeased the rule setters of religion, education, and career, I felt empty inside. I had to admit I'd placed all my faith in external systems, not in my own potential and divinity. The turning point came when I started to turn my faith inward, believing in my own abilities and power. Now, I got there through a lot of self-development, coaching, mentoring, reading books, surrounding myself with new ideas and empowering sources in my life. Hey, do you have an impressive career on paper, but inside you feel trapped? Is this situation hurting your home life? If so, I'd like to show you exactly how to leverage your corporate career to build entrepreneurial freedom. Head on over to uncagedworkshop.com. There you'll find a short video training for how to create a new work-life chapter that rapidly boosts your freedom, income, and impact, all in service of a life that'll make your future self and your family proud. So head on over to uncagedworkshop.com. All right, back to the show. So as I went forward, I began to explore my buried dreams and tap into my inner wisdom, my strength, and my purpose, stuff that had been suppressed for years and stuff I really wasn't acquainted with at all. I didn't know about these things. My dreams, I had no idea what they were, but they were there when I started to unearth them. When I learned to have faith in myself, these new creative energies just awakened in me. It was like a different version of Matt exploded into the universe. As one of my heroes, Ralph Waldo Emerson, said, "Do not seek yourself outside of yourself. The more you do, the less you will find." Man, that felt so true to me. Here's the reality. The divine truth that you seek, it all resides within each of us. We each contain this spark of something bigger than us, a more powerful element of the universe, if we learn to tap into it. I even took control of my spiritual exploration. So while I grew up in one form of religion, I wasn't closed off to that. I wanted to learn more about it, and I found that everyone from the Buddha to Christ to the great Hindu texts out there and some of the more secular spiritual leaders of our last few hundred years, they all spoke of the power within. Let that seep in. The power isn't out there. The power is within you. You just haven't learned how to tap into it. So this finally started to make sense to me. And I started to find tangible ways to apply this idea of my inner power, my inner faith in my own life. For example, I learned to put my corporate job on autopilot. That took a lot of guts to say, while everyone else is killing themselves at work, which it had killed me, it destroyed many parts of my life, I said, I'm going to reimagine my relationship with corporate, make it work on my terms, still maintain my reputation, my credibility, my high earning potential, while reclaiming a great deal of my life and energy back, a lot of my time. And I did just that. I also learned to find my power and build a business that's a full expression of me. Rather than following some of the simple routes out there, like getting into real estate or buying a boring business or starting a franchise or an e-commerce business, things that are popular, that didn't feel right to me. So I tapped into my inner power, much like I do with a lot of my clients. And we start to understand what lights us up. What's our zone of genius? How do we create a business that really gets us going and is a full expression of ourselves? So this mission, this podcast, the business that I run in tandem with this is a full expression of me and all my interests. That took a lot of power within, inner faith, right? And then finally, another way I applied this was the most critical area of my life, being a husband and a father to my 4 kids. So even with all the complexity in my life, I've learned to do this and really dial it up these last few years. I've awakened, I've become more energized, more present in ways that I wasn't even close to before. And that took the power within, having faith in myself that I could be that person, build those skills, that energy, that focus to be there for them in ways that's going to serve them forever. And after years of going through this, trusting myself and applying it to see what I was capable of, this whole dependence on external systems started to loosen, to weaken. It felt not real anymore. And I realized that I don't need external systems to pull off these massive things in my life. The mission I'm supposed to have, the person I'm supposed to be, the husband, the father, the coach, all of that. It was all within me. I chose that reality. I had to commit to it and go do the work. And I realized that when we tap into our innate gifts, we're unlocking our greatest potential. We're not just doing something that's popular, following a default path in a way that doesn't feel great to our soul and it just feels logical. But when you look and you start to discover your gifts, your zone of genius, what you're meant to do on this earth, do the work to get there, it all becomes very clear. So as the years went by over the last decade, when I made corporate work for me and I started my entrepreneurial journey, I stopped merely hoping for external conditions to improve, for the marriage to get better, for the job not to suck, for my time to magically show back and reclaim back in my life, or for the business to magically take off on its own. Instead, I focused within. I stopped waiting for the future and started boldly creating from deep inner faith. One of my favorite authors from over 100 years ago, Florence Scovel Shinn, she said this: "Hope looks forward. Faith knows it has already received and acts accordingly." We're not just depending on hope, wishing for things to get better out there in the external world. We tap into our inner faith, our knowing. We choose that reality. We believe that we have the capacity to ignite these massive effects for positive gains for ourselves, for the people around us. For me, all the signs were there. The messages were coded into my very being. It was telling me to be this type of person, to go on this entrepreneurial path, to take control of my corporate job, to really show up at home in a big way, to go create a movement out in the world. These were all signals within, and I had to pay attention. Those outcomes would not be handed to me on a silver platter. I couldn't just wait for external systems or just conditions in my world to change. No, I had to go ignite that. I had to tap into my faith within. And trust me, it takes courage. It takes commitment to actually go through and pay attention to what's going on inside and listen to those inner signals and truly have faith and turn that light switch on, right? That's a very big change from that 180 external dependence, having faith out there, to having, boom, faith in here. The power and the magic is inside you, my friend. It's just waiting to be unleashed. But first, you've got to learn to trust yourself above all else. Keep faith in your own silent authority, because it's more lasting than any temple ever made by human hands. We always look for things that are constructed, jobs, religions, other institutions out there to tell us the way to live. And we're just giving ourselves over to that. And while there's value and there's so much that those systems can guide for us to help keep us on course, I believe in that. But there's so much power within. And that power within is what I'm asking you to tap into. So if you do this, miracles will unfold in your life. You've got to understand that you've got to turn your faith inward. Yes, balance it with external faith, but have faith in yourself. This is one of the core things I work with in my clients, and we start to understand what we're capable of, our gifts, and apply that to how we can change our career in corporate, in entrepreneurship, to have faith in ourselves, and then unleash those superpowers out there, create a business that we love, create massive impact, great earnings, all of that, great lifestyle. And the way that we all get started with my clients is by having a breakthrough call. And you can book that over at matthewdoan.com/talk. Now, if you book that call, that's where you start this journey. And we'll cover 3 things in that call. Number 1 is we'll look at your current work situation to identify what's working, what's not working, and why. Secondly, we'll get clarity on what you do want instead for both career and life. And thirdly, we'll talk about the exact game plan to turn on this inner faith, to actually get going and building a new work-life chapter that you absolutely love. So you can book that at matthewdoan.com/talk. So I hope you understand this flip from pure external dependence on systems out there in the world to having way more inner faith. That's the point. We have to turn our faith inward, because when we live that way, we're living inside out, not outside in. We are living as someone who understands their greatest power, and they're able to use it out there to make a difference, to create a work situation, to create impact for their family. That's just truly beautiful. So turn your faith inward, balance it with the externals out there in the world, and just go out there and live the way you were supposed to. I know this was a bit of a soapbox piece today. It's something that's been going on within my heart, and I hope you take it to heart too. We'll chat soon.
Hey, Matt here. Thanks for listening to Uncage Yourself. For show notes and more content like this, head over to uncageyourself.fm. And if you liked what you heard, I'd appreciate you leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Until next time, be well, my friend.